Yo, 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 what is up, y'all? It's Cone back here again today with another episode of After the Buzzer, the show where I recap the NBA games from the day. Today is the Christmas Day edition. Christmas basketball is a tradition that happens every single year, and every year I watch every single game all day. So, you already know I watched every single one of these games all the way through, and me and many other people leading up to these games were kind of concerned about the games because due to the whole health and safety protocol, COVID kind of outbreak thing going on in the NBA right now, there are a lot of key players missing on a lot of teams. Kevin Durant, Anthony Davis, you've got a couple key guys on the Boston Celtics. You're missing Andrew Wiggins, Jordan Poole, two very important players for the Warriors. You're missing Luka Doncic, Trae Young. You're missing a lot of people in these games. And so it was it was up in the air whether or not these games were going to be good or just awful. And they were pretty damn good. Pretty much every single one of these games was fun for at least part of it. Really, the only game that didn't come down to the wire was the Hawks-Knicks game. And that's the one I'm going to talk about at the end anyway. So if you don't want to see that, that'll be at the end. But I do want to go ahead and start off with probably my favorite game of the night, which was the Lakers-Nets game. I was really anticipating this one. Of course, you know there's no Kevin Durant or Anthony Davis. So while both these teams are, well, theoretically, the Lakers could have won this one or probably should have won this one. They did not, losing 115 to 122. But it was really close. For most of the game, the Nets kind of started to pull away a little bit. They were up 15 after the first quarter, but then the Lakers brought it back. And then the Nets went on a crazy run, were up 23. And then the Lakers brought it all the way back to a tied game in the fourth quarter right at the end. And then when they needed to kind of score most, they kind of just fell apart. They couldn't stop the Nets. Nick Claxton dunked on LeBron James. Russell Westbrook got blocked by the rim on a dunk when they needed 3 points, and he had two wide open 3-point shooters on the perimeter. It was just kind of the same story. That's kind of played the Lakers, where they fail to execute in some big time situations. They don't quite play up to their potential, and LeBron James carries. LeBron James carried the hell out of this team. He had 39, 9, and 7. I believe he shot 14 of 24. He made some really clutch threes. He did basically everything for this team. Great defensive plays, as he's been doing most of the season, orchestrating the offense. There was one play at the end of the game where I think they were down 4 or 5, and they needed points. And LeBron catches the ball in the corner with his back to the basket. And it looks like there's guys, every other player's over in the middle. And it looks like they're going to kind of move and do some kind of action to try and get someone open and maybe get a three. But nobody moved. Just no one. They just stood there. And LeBron shot a fadeaway contested three from the corner because, well, one, I think he was the only one on that team that I expected to hit any shots at that point. And two, nobody moved. So there was no one open for him to pass to anyway. So LeBron continues to put this team on his back, and it's crazy to watch how much he has to carry this team. Russ did have a triple-double, but he was shot terribly. He had some pretty big rebounds in this one and a couple great passes, but overall it was not a great game from him. They really needed more from him offensively down the stretch. You had Melo, who had 17 and 11. He was all right. Malik Monk had 20 points. He was fine. Stanley Johnson played 27 minutes and played some really good defense in this one. Darren Collison made his NBA return tonight and just fouled the hell out of multiple 3-point shooters until they took him out. He decked 2 or 3 of them on back-to-back plays. It was rough. It's been a little bit. He's rusty, but this Lakers team, this is a game they should have won. I'm sure this is one they want back. I know they went down a lot. They went down 23. The fact that they came back from down 23 is really, really, it's a good sign for this Lakers team. But the fact that, number one, they went down by 23 in the first place, and two, couldn't close it out are big concerns. This is a team that has a lot of great players. They're just not fitting. They're not working well together. And so I do expect a lot of moves to come. LeBron said after this game, he said, "I'm not very patient," which sounds like the whole team is going to get traded at the deadline. So I think that'll be pretty interesting. People were very mad at Russell Westbrook. But he's been good this season. I know he doesn't fit well with LeBron, but he's genuinely been a really solid player over the course of this season. Now, probably the biggest issue was he had a couple really key defensive lapses. For example, leaving Patty Mills open in the corner for a wide open 3-pointer when he was cooking all game. He had 34 points. Patty Mills. He went insane. He was a big reason why they went up by 23 in this one. James Harden had a 36-point triple-double as well. He had a good game. Nick Claxton had some big defensive possessions, and like I mentioned, he dunked on LeBron, so that's a pretty good Christmas present for him. Bruce Brown had 16 points. DeAndre Bembry had 15. This was a big team effort from the Nets, and this is a good win for them. Without Kevin Durant, without their soon-to-be returning part-time point guard, that's a weird kind of thing to say. Kyrie Irving, did it without him. So this Nets team getting another big win, remaining on top of the Eastern Conference, while another team out east that they're kind of in competition with for that first seed also got a win. So big win for the Nets. Just good execution down the stretch from them. This was one of the best games that James Harden has played all season. He kind of struggled down the stretch. He kind of fell off a little bit, but when they needed him most, he made a great pass to Claxton for that dunk on LeBron, and then kind of just orchestrated things well right at the end. So overall, James Harden having a really solid game to get the Nets the win. Now, as I mentioned, the Milwaukee Bucks, the reigning NBA champions, played the Boston Celtics tonight, getting a win 117-113. This was another one where it took a big comeback. The Boston Celtics were up big in this one. They were up 13 after the first quarter. They're up 15 at half, and then the Bucks stormed back to make it a close game in the third quarter, and especially in the fourth quarter. They just kept inching closer and closer and closer, led by, of course, one of the best players in the world, reigning Finals MVP, Giannis Antetokounmpo, 36 points, 12 rebounds, 5 assists. Chris Middleton had 17, 7, and 3. Jrue Holiday had 17, 5, and 3, including a clutch steal at the end of the game. The Celtics are down 3. They've got to get a shot. Jason Tatum kind of goes in for like the quick 2, and Jrue Holiday just stripped him. It was very reminiscent of the strip in the finals against Devin Booker. Jrue Holiday kind of just makes those big time plays, and the Bucks at the end of this game played exactly like they looked in that finals run. They reminded everyone why they can be so scary at times, even when they're not at full strength. Still no Brook Lopez in this one. Dante DiVincenzo did make his return. He only played 16 minutes and had 3 points, but he looked good out there defensively. 16 and 10 from Bobby Portis. This team is really, really good. And when they're firing on all cylinders, especially defensively, that's the scariest part about them. When they're firing on all cylinders defensively. Because this team not only can put buckets on your head, Giannis is nearly impossible to stop. Chris Middleton makes tough shots look easy. Jrue can heat up in a flash. They've got great three-point shooters in Grayson Allen, Bobby Portis, George Hill, Pat Connaughton, Dante DiVincenzo. But when they lock in defensively and they have all of that offensive firepower as well, it reminds you why they're NBA champions and why they're so tough to stop. This was the best basketball I've seen the Bucks play right at the end of this game since they won the finals. This was probably their best last few minutes of the entire season. They locked the hell up. And they made great offensive players in Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum look super average. This is a good win for the Bucks. This is one that they need to do. Now, should they have gone down by as much as they did in the first place? Probably not. But as an NBA champion, as a team that continues to show resilience and has shown resilience over the course of the past year or so, year and a half, this Bucks team makes the plays they need to at the end of the game to win. Those clutch time plays like Jrue Holiday's steal, Giannis had a couple really big buckets at the end. That is the reason they are the reigning champions, and it shows in big time matchups like this. For the Boston Celtics, 25 from Jason Tatum, who was inefficient, 25 for Jaylen Brown, who was pretty solid, 19 from Marcus Smart. Robert Williams, in my opinion, might have been their player of the game. He had so many big offensive rebounds or just even defensive rebounds, wrestling it away from other guys. He had a couple huge blocks, 11 points, 14 rebounds, 4 assists. He was kind of just doing a little bit of everything. I felt like every time the Celtics needed to kind of slow the Bucks' momentum a bit, Robert Williams made some kind of big play. He's a guy I really, really like, and I think he's super underrated. So pay attention to Robert Williams. He makes a lot of winning plays. Warriors Suns, also an amazing game. The Warriors getting a big win, 116-107, getting revenge against the Suns. This is a big one for them. Once again, as I mentioned previously, no Andrew Wiggins, no Jordan Poole, and it didn't matter. Steph Curry, 33, 4, and 6. He's always been kind of mediocre on Christmas Day, and he made that look stupid tonight. This was really a showcase of how great the Warriors team is built. They have so many guys that can kind of step into the roles that are made kind of vacant by those guys that are out. Wiggins, 3-and-D guy. You put like Otto Porter in that role. While he's not as good as Wiggins, he played that role to a T tonight. 19, 6, and 3 he had I think 7 straight points right at the end of this game while the Suns were kind of bringing it a little bit close. He had 2 really tough mid-range jumpers and then a pull-up 3 to just completely close this one out. It was amazing. So shout out to Automatic. He's found a really good role on this team. 8, 10, and 8 from Draymond Green, who is just really the motor that makes this team run. 8 and 10 from Kevon Looney. Gary Payton II is so good, and I can't believe the Warriors managed to get him. He had 14 and 8. 12 from Kuminga, who is really showing out in this one. He had a tough 3 in someone's face. I can't remember who, but it was really cool. He had a crazy reverse layup as well. He was in his bag tonight. Bielitsa with 10. Toscano Anderson with 4, 2, and 3. Derry Weatherspoon played 14 minutes, and he had 6 points. The Warriors system is it's just a well well-oiled machine. It's something I've said a million times. You could put a bunch of different guys in those kind of like wing roles and just those 3-and-D guys, and they're there to step up to the challenge. They have brought in guys who buy into the system, know their role, and know how to play it really, really well. So shout out to the Warriors for establishing this great culture. They just played great basketball, and this was just a phenomenal basketball game. I've said it previously, I want to see a series, whether it's in the conference finals, second round, whatever. I want to see a series between these two teams because every matchup that they have had is some of my favorite basketball I've watched maybe ever. Just the team play, the clutch moments, the star power on both sides. For the Suns side, the stars came up a little bit shorter. Chris Paul did have 21, 6, and 8, but Devin Booker only 13, 3, and 3 in 40 minutes. 18 from Ayton, who was pretty good. 17 from Mikal Bridges. 11 from Cam Johnson. 7 from Cam Payne. 8 from JaVale McGee. I mean, they played well. This is one they definitely wanted to win and probably should have won. But like I mentioned, this Warriors team is just super deep and stacked. They're going to be really, really hard to beat when it comes to the playoffs, when they've got Klay Thompson back, when they've got James Wiseman. They're going to be a very tough team because they've been there and they've done that before. There's so many guys on that team who are so experienced between Curry, Draymond, you've got Kevon Looney who's been there, Klay, of course, he's going to come back. Guys that have done it and been there before, and such a well-oiled and just kind of recognized system amongst their organization. Everyone knows exactly what role they're supposed to be into, which I think is a super underrated part of a lot of championship teams. When you have teams where the players know what role they're supposed to play and they play it to a T, it goes a long way. You need star power, but right behind star power, you need role players who buy into their roles. That's exactly what the Warriors do, and that's why they won this game, and that's why right now they're probably the favorites to win the NBA Finals. Moving on from that one, once again, another really good game. The Mavericks losing by 4 points to the Utah Jazz, 120-116. The Jazz, this game probably shouldn't have been as close as it was, but as someone who loves to watch good basketball, it was a fun one. 33 for Donovan Mitchell, 3 rebounds and 3 assists as well. 25 for Bojan Bogdanovic, 10 and 11 for Rudy Gobert, 12 for Clarkson, who also had a couple really big defensive plays in this one to swing the momentum. I believe it was in kind of like the mid-fourth quarter, right around like the 8 or 9 minute mark. He had a couple really big defensive plays, as well as I think it was a dunk. He was just kind of doing a little bit of everything, really getting the crowd into it. Donovan Mitchell, it feels like, continues to take another step. I know a lot of people don't respect this Jazz team because of kind of their playoff failures recently, but it really feels like this Jazz team might be better than any of those other teams, and I think it is because of Donovan Mitchell. Something just feels different about the way that he's playing. I can't tell what it is, but he's playing some of his best basketball, and so sleep on him and the Jazz at your own risk. On the Mavericks side, as I mentioned, no Luka Doncic, but 27, 9, and 3 from Kristaps, 27 for Jalen Brunson, 17 for Frank Ntilikina, who's found a really solid role here as a 3-and-D guy, 10 from Brandon Knight, who made a return, 9 from Theo Pinson, 6 from Moses Brown. They just didn't have... Charlie Brown Jr. played too, so it was like the Charlie Brown Christmas special. They just didn't have the depth. They were missing a lot of guys, and it really showed. Also, no like Tim Hardaway Jr., no Dorian Finney-Smith. They were missing some really important pieces, so to keep this game close is kind of a good sign for the Dallas Mavericks. Of course, they want to win, but, it's a good sign. And finally, the last game, probably the worst game out of all of these because it started off pretty close and then it turned into a blowout. It was the Atlanta Hawks versus the New York Knicks. No Trae Young in this one. Cam Reddish had a couple good moments. John Collins had some solid moments. DeLon Wright had 20 points in a big game for him. But it was the Knicks were the story. 25 and 12 from Julius Randle. Kemba Walker got a triple-double following up his recent 40-point performance. 15 from Evan Fournier. 15 for Quentin Grimes, who continues to impress. Obi Toppin threw down a between-the-legs dunk in transition, which was awesome, and then the entire stadium, Madison Square Garden, was chanting Obi over and over again, which is kind of incredible. The Knicks were just really fun to watch. It was cool to see them get this win. The crowd was super pumped, and they started to chant F Trae Young at the end, even though he didn't play, so it's good to see that this rivalry is still going pretty strong. I'm excited to see these two teams play next time. I believe they still play this season. I'm not failing to recall now whether or not they played this year, but it's always fun when these two teams play. Even if it wasn't much of a game, the atmosphere at these games, because Knicks fans hate the Hawks, it's super fun to watch. It was enjoyable, and even though it was a blowout, I still had fun. So those were the Christmas Day games. Let me know what you thought about all these games. I personally enjoyed them a lot. I was kind of surprised how much the games impressed me. I felt like we had a really good slate despite missing some guys, and that's just kind of the way Christmas basketball goes. I feel like it very rarely disappoints. Although now, if I kind of remember correctly, I think last year's wasn't very... Well, we won't talk about that. But all in all, pretty good day of Christmas basketball. Let me know what your favorite game was from this day. Let me know what Christmas Day matchups you would have picked if you could have picked some other ones. I appreciate y'all watching. I will see you all later. Real one, say it back.